Hey guys, how's everyone doing? So glad to be back on here filming again. The last couple of weeks have been really tough. I have run into some bizarre things. Also, some miraculous things have happened. So I've been processing through a lot of feelings based on what the last couple of weeks have brought. As I have talked about in some previous episodes, my 10-year-old daughter has a really rare autoimmune disease. It's called juvenile dermatomyositis. It affects her skin and her muscles. She is the baby, and she's exactly 18 months younger than my fourth daughter, just above her. She started to get sick in the beginning of 2019. She caught a virus. I think all of the little kids in the family caught a virus in February. I think it was really similar to like hand, foot, and mouth. She got really sick for a couple of weeks, and then she got this redness on her cheeks, and the redness just wouldn't go away. So I took her into the doctor. He looked at her. He said, yeah, I think that she probably caught a virus and then caught another virus. It's just, bad luck. So this redness would lighten a little bit sometimes, and then it would get darker on her cheeks sometimes, but it never went away. And eventually it spread to her whole face. She started getting rashes and redness on her arms. By that summer, she was having muscle weakness. She was having a hard time walking. She couldn't walk for very far. I took her back to the original doctor. He looked at her, he did some labs, and he said one of her numbers came back high, but he said, honestly, Emily, if I tested everybody in the office, one of their markers would be off in one of the labs. That doctor checked her over, said, I think that she's having growing pains and eczema. She was having a lot of pain in her legs, really consistently having leg aches. I ended up taking her to an Instacare close to us. I didn't have health insurance on my kids back then, but the Instacare checked her over. They kind of reiterated that she was probably having growing pains, and that they also thought that the skin condition was eczema, because at this point it was running down her arms as well. Finally, I told my sister I want to take her to Primary Children's Hospital. That's our local children's hospital here in Utah, and I want to just camp out there and tell them I'm not leaving until you figure out what's wrong with my daughter. So my sister said, take her to my pediatrician. My pediatrician for my kids is amazing. She's kind of an expert in all things random. She just deals with a lot of really odd childhood issues. So I called in. It was August, I think, at this point, and they couldn't get her in to this pediatrician until November. It was really backed up. September rolls around. They call me and tell me, hey, we have an appointment available in October, a month sooner. So bring her in October. And we wake up one morning, and now she's got a rash all on her chest. So it started on her face, it went to her arms, the rash went to her legs. At this point, she's not really walking. She wants me to carry her everywhere we go. And the nurse from the pediatrician's office calls me, and she says, hey, we just want to get some updated information, and we want to see if you can bring her in 2 days. So of course, yes, please, we'll take it. And I start going over all of the questions with this nurse, and I let the nurse know, yeah, she's started to get this rash on her chest. So now the redness is all over her body. I think she also had it a little bit on her back. And that nurse begged me to take her into the Instacare. So this group of pediatricians at this office, it's a building next to the hospital that's literally right above my house. It's just like a street above my house. And so I'm at work that day, and she begs me, please bring her to the Instacare today. Like, don't wait any longer. Bring her into the Instacare. I take her up to the Instacare, and 2 pediatricians look over her, and they are baffled. But they know that it's not eczema. They know that it's not growing pains. They know that there's something seriously wrong with her. One of them, her husband, was also a doctor, and I think he specialized in like blood diseases. And so they pulled up her lab work. They asked me to do a bunch of labs. Like, they wanted to draw, I think, like 10 vials of blood and run labs on everything that they possibly could. And again, we didn't have insurance. And so then they said, well, maybe we should wait. Let's see what the pediatrician that you're seeing in 2 days thinks. And I said, honestly, is she going to want these labs? They said, yes. I said, draw them. I don't care how much it is. I will, work it out with LabCorp. So they draw all of this blood. These 2 pediatricians together look her over for about 2.5 hours while we're at the Instacare. And again, they're baffled. The one reaches out to her husband. We think it's lupus. We don't necessarily think it's lupus. Lupus is the closest thing that we can come up to what this possibly could be. So I take her to the appointment 2 days later with the pediatrician. This pediatrician looks her over, and she just very calmly says to me, she has juvenile dermatomyositis, and we need to get her into a rheumatologist at Primaries, and they will get her on some anti-inflammatories and some steroids. And before you know it, she will be back to her normal self. So I'm like, okay, great. We have an answer. So I go home. I get a call from the Children's Hospital an hour later. They schedule us an appointment the next day. I take her up there the next day, and this rheumatologist, looks her over, goes over all of her labs. She says, I definitely think that it's juvenile dermatomyositis. I think 2 in a million kids are diagnosed with this a year in the United States. And she starts telling me about the disease, and she starts telling me what the treatment is for this disease. I'm sitting in that doctor's office just panicked. I should not be here alone. I should not be sitting in this appointment alone. She's talking about giving her a shot of chemotherapy once a week and high doses of steroids in IV form, steroids in the morning, steroids at night, putting her on immune suppressants. Here I am, this plig kid who was raised to not trust anyone, especially doctors, police, CPS, teachers, anybody outside of the cult, essentially, you just don't trust. But that's not the way that I live my life, right? I incorporate a lot of what I was raised with a lot of what I see work in the outside world. This rheumatologist is new. She's only been at the Children's Hospital for like 6 months. She's never had a patient with this disease. She wants to consult with the team of rheumatologists up there. They all consult together on these childhood illnesses. So I leave the hospital with my little girl, and I get about 10 minutes down the street. I had just gotten onto the freeway system, and the rheumatologist calls me, and she says, hey, are you still here at the hospital? And I said, no, I'm not. I'm on the freeway headed home. But why? And so I immediately get off the next exit. I pull over at a McDonald's. I get my baby a kid milk so that I can talk to this doctor. And she says, we want to admit her today. We want to admit her right now. Talking to the team, we think that this is really serious and that she needs to be admitted right away. So I am like, wow, okay, this just went from like, we're going to give your kid some medicine and she's going to be okay, to we're going to give your kid a lot of medicine and it's really scary medicine. And here's the information to, we want your kid in the hospital right now. So it was obviously devastating. This appointment was on a Thursday, and we had planned to go camping on Friday. We were going up to Lava Hot Springs, Idaho, to camp up there for the weekend. So she said, you know what? Let's do this. you take her camping. This gives you time to talk to your husband. You guys can, have a few days to wrap your head around this. We want you to have her at the hospital at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. We're going to have a bed ready for her then. We go home. I tell my husband we go camping for the weekend with our best friends and their kids. And we really do spend a couple of days wrapping our heads around what's going on. Show up to the children's hospital. I think it was October 13th of 2019. So she had been sick for 8 months at this point. It was truly the scariest thing that I had dealt with up to then. She is the baby of 5 girls. The most that we had ever dealt with prior to this was tubes, ear tubes, and tonsils being removed. She had had her tonsils taken out at 2.5. She had had strep throat from 18 months until she was 2.5. And then we finally took her tonsils out. Her older sister had had her tonsils taken out, and her older brother, I think, had had his taken out. And then a couple of the kids had had tubes put in their ears. So those were things that were hard to deal with, but just kind of common, childhood things that you deal with. So this was really scary. This was a really scary process. So we go in that Monday. They run a bunch of tests. They do an MRI on her legs to see what her muscles look like. And if the MRI doesn't show inflammation in the muscles, then they would go in and do a biopsy of the muscles. Thankfully, it showed up on the MRI, so we didn't have to do that biopsy on her. But we spent that week in the children's hospital. They started administering high-dose IV steroids, these big IV bags full of liquid steroid. They did that for 3 days. It was a pulse high-dose steroid, get her system saturated in these steroids. I took her back once a week for months. I don't even remember for how long, but we would go back in there every Monday and they would give her another full bag. I think it was like 450 milligrams of methylprednisone. So we did that for several months. We were giving her steroids in the morning, giving her steroids at night, put her on 2 or 3 different immune suppressants. She started getting IVIG. So every 28 days, starting in November, she would get an IV with IVIG, which is human immunoglobulins. Because they were suppressing her immune system, the IVIG, I know that it helps to fight the disease and it also gives her some immunity. She's been getting this IVIG for 6 years now. So every 28 days, like clockwork, for 6 years. I think there was once that we had to miss it because she had COVID, or it was during COVID and she had some flu-like symptoms. Aside from that, I've taken her every single 28 days. I take her in and get her this IVIG. She ended up flaring twice during the last 6 years where the disease really flared up. She would go through a lot of pain. I would lay with her at night in her bed and just rub her legs all night long. Sometimes she'll sleep in my shower, and sometimes I'll get up in the morning and she is wrapped in my robe, asleep on my bathroom floor. I try to keep like a really fluffy rug in there for her. In 2022, so she flared in October of 21. And we spent all of 22 seeing all kinds of specialists, cardiologists, the bone doctor. I mean, I was taking her to every doctor that they recommended, doing physical therapy, all of the things. The rheumatologist that was her doctor at the time wanted to diagnose her with a chronic pain diagnosis. And I said, fuck you. She's 7. You're not giving her a chronic pain diagnosis at 7. You have to be kidding me. I need you to go back and look, figure out what's going on with her. This is not chronic pain. Something is wrong with her, and I need you to figure it out. So all of the year 2022, we spent in and out of doctors' offices. We were seeing the doctors 5 to 8 times a week, and I started looking at other children's hospitals and looking at doctors that specialize in this disease. I was just fighting like hell to figure out again what was wrong with her. I had spent all of 2019 trying to figure out what was going on, what was wrong with her. Now, here I am 3 years later in 2022, fighting like mad to figure out again what's going on, what's wrong with her. So finally, this rheumatologist refers her to an internal pain clinic. So Primaries has two pain clinics. There's a pain clinic where if you're not already a patient at Primaries, you can be referred to that pain clinic. If you're already a patient at Primaries, you can be referred to this internal pain clinic. So I had looked at the top doctor I think she's in Maryland. I think her name is Ryder. Maybe it's Lisa Ryder. I can't remember for sure. But I had looked at potentially taking her to that doctor and also to a doctor in Texas and a doctor in Seattle. I was losing confidence in the hospital here. And I think looking back, really it was this doctor, and it was because she was new to this disease. So as I'm searching for a doctor outside of our hospital, I get several people that tell me you need to take her to this doctor. She's the top rheumatologist at Primary Children's. She's the best. She knows this disease. If you can get her into her, she can help her. So the current rheumatologist gives her this referral to the internal pain clinic. We get the appointment scheduled. It's like 6 weeks out. I think 4 weeks later or 2 weeks later, they call me. It's a holiday weekend. I'm packing my car to take my kids out of town for the weekend. And the children's hospital calls me and says, "Hey, we just got an opening for tomorrow in this pain clinic. Can you bring her in tomorrow?" Abso-freaking-lutely, we will be there. So this appointment is an all-day appointment. You go in and you meet with like 8 different doctors, and they go over all the different things that basically coming at this from every angle they possibly can. So we get there, I fill out a packet of paper. Like, it's a ton of information. Well, the rheumatologist that I had other people telling me to get her to, she happens to be on that team of doctors. Let me tell you, this woman is absolutely amazing. Our pediatrician is by far the most phenomenal doctor I think I've ever met. This woman has advocated as closely as I have for my child. I do not know how people deal with childhood illness in their kids without a pediatrician like this, because the amount of battles that you go through when you're dealing with these types of diseases, it is so hard. These kids suffer so much, and thank God these children's hospitals are they're phenomenal. The things that they come up with and the activities that these kids get to do while they're in the hospital. So we see the rheumatologist, and she says, this is absolutely her disease. Her disease is hiding somewhere in her body, and we just don't know where. We just don't know exactly where to find it. But this pain that she's having, this is from her disease. And so I begged her, "You please take over care of my daughter." Something that was so crazy. Back in 2011, I had started working at a flooring company here. And I think it was in 2012, my boss was a softball coach. He had coached his daughters through softball, and I was the secretary there full time, and sometimes I would help him with his softball schedule. He has 3 children, and his oldest daughter was 19. She had an 18-month-old baby, and she was murdered at a house party. And her 15-year-old little sister was there with her. Their family, obviously, that is one of the most devastating things that you could absolutely ever have to deal with. So my boss and his wife, they ended up raising her 18-month-old baby. And she's just a beautiful girl. She's always been a beautiful girl. Now she's a beautiful woman. At this point, I think she's like 12, and her best friend gets sick and they can't figure out what's wrong with her. So I've met this little girl several times. They were in and out of the office and they have a really tight-knit community. They almost lost her a few times. She was really, really sick. It took the doctors a couple of years, for sure a year, but maybe 2 to figure out what was wrong with her. Fast forward a couple of years, I think that was in 2012, and then here we are in 2019, so 7 years later, my little girl gets diagnosed, and I find out that it's the same disease. It's such a rare disease, so to know someone, and obviously she wasn't close to me, but close enough. And when I found out that that's what my little girl had was the same thing, I was so terrified, so scared for them when they went through it. So then my baby gets that diagnosis and I realize that it's the same thing and I can't even hardly wrap my head around it. But the doctor, the rheumatologist, that she ended up having is the rheumatologist now in this pain clinic. So she has already fought this fight, and she is one of the top rheumatologists for children with juvenile arthritis. This woman is insanely smart, obviously incredibly gifted, has a passion for what she does. So she takes over care of my baby and she says she has been sick now for 2.5 years. We're gonna increase this medicine. We're gonna add in this medicine. She sent me home with samples that day to start her on, and she finally started to make progress. I want to say towards the end of 2023. In February of 24, I take her in for her 3-month evaluation with the rheumatologist, and the rheumatologist has a PA shadowing her that day. And my baby had been having a lot of anxiety around her medical appointments, also going to school. She was having a hard time sitting at her desk all day, and so we had accommodations and things with this school. Thankfully, she had a really good teacher that year. The previous year, she didn't have a good teacher. That teacher was really hard on her. She was really hard to deal with. And I'm talking to the PA about this, and I asked them because they had given her a really mild anxiety medicine that I could give her on IV days. So I talked to them. She's on the same dose as she was before. What do you think about either increasing the dose? Is there something else that we can try for her? The PA tells me, I think that you should consider putting her on an antidepressant. And I'm like, wait, what? Okay. She's 8. Can I put my 8-year-old on an antidepressant? I had gone on one in 22 and it had made a significant difference with the pain that I was having in my back and in my legs. So I didn't just throw it out the window right away when he said that. I really considered it. And the rheumatologist came in, I talked to her. She said, this is a conversation we should have had a year ago. I think that it really is time to consider doing this. She's been through a lot, and this may be what helps her. The rheumatologist tells me this would be prescribed through the pediatrician. She would maintain this medicine with her. I take her in for an office visit with the pediatrician a couple weeks later, and she just said, I'm so sorry that I didn't have this conversation with you at least a year ago. This is something that we should have talked about already at this point. And I just said, I don't know that I would have given her the medicine a year ago. I know how much it helped me when I went on it. I was currently on it at that time. So I said, let's try it. And they explained it to me in a way that really helped me come to terms with it that's a big decision to make, to put your 8-year-old on an antidepressant. Obviously, we had already been giving her really scary medicine up to this point, so I think an antidepressant probably wasn't the scariest thing, or shouldn't have been the scariest thing, except that I was raised in a cult. So there's that. They explained it like her nervous system has been on overdrive for so long. When you break your arm, you put a cast on it, right? You've got to give your arm a break. So maybe we need to give her nervous system a break. We need to help her nervous system out. And within 4 weeks, she was like a new kid. It was amazing to me to see the difference in her. We end up getting that same teacher again for her 4th grade year. She had had really good teachers. And then her 2nd grade year, I don't know what the problem was with this woman. She had gotten in a car accident at the beginning of the school year with her daughter, who's just a grade under my daughter. And I don't know if she bonked her head in that car accident or what happened, but I've been a mom for 25 years. I have been in classrooms. I don't even know how many teachers that is, with 5 kids and 26 years now of parenting. I've never seen a teacher behave the way that this woman behaved. And this school, the principals, I just have struggled. I really have struggled with how this district, this school, and especially this teacher have treated my daughter. Now, I get divorced at the end of 23. I'm a single mom now with 2 little kids at home, 3 adult children, a grandchild. I'm having to work as much as I can to provide for my kids, and I'm still taking care of my daughter's disease full time. I have been her caretaker 100% of the time since she originally got sick in 2019. I've been her hands-on caretaker since she was in my belly, but I've dealt with 100% of her medical care. And my kids got news of who their teachers were, and both of them said, no, I want this other teacher. I don't want the teacher that I got. I emailed the school and said, hey, can we make these changes? In my brain, I was thinking that this teacher was my older daughter's teacher the previous year. I don't know why. I just had a complete brain fart memory lapse of who this woman was. So we show up for back to school night, and it is the same teacher that she had had in 2nd grade. And I'm like, holy shit, what did I just do? So, okay, it's, 2 years later, let's give this woman a chance. Worst decision of my life. I should not have given her a chance. She was awful. So now I've got to co-parent and have someone involved in things that hasn't been involved in things before. I've got this teacher who is just giving my child shit every time I turn around. Thank goodness we had put her on that medicine, because I don't know how we would have survived 2024 into 25 without it. She finally started going to school, could make it through the school day, going to school more days than she was missing, starting to play like a normal 9-year-old, now 10-year-old child. All of her test scores, everything was just below the below average line. And I'm looking at it knowing that these things aren't accurate. They're not correct. I know that she's not comfortable with who's testing her, how she's being handled in this environment. So school starts this last August. I go to the first parent-teacher conference. She's almost at grade level on everything. And I look at the teacher and I said, is this real? Are these scores real? She said, absolutely. What do you mean, are they real? I said, are you just being kind? Are you just like scoring her this way because you're just being kind? She said, no, this is how she tested. This is where she's performing at. I just burst into tears in that appointment because I cry all the time now, right? I was so suppressed and not allowed to cry. Now I cry all the time. I feel like this is finally such a huge breakthrough for my baby. We've just been fighting everything fighting to figure out what was going on in her body, fighting to get her the appropriate medical care. Now I'm fighting the school, fighting this teacher to even give my child quality care while she's at the school. Here I finally have a teacher sitting in front of me telling me she is a gifted child. She is incredibly smart. There's no way that she tested out in May the way that she did and then tested back into school in August. I didn't teach her over the summer. I didn't give her any additional education to raise her scores and to bring her up to the level that she was. So to see the difference in what a quality teacher did with my child is astonishing. I can't wait until one day when I'm able to speak more freely about these things to tell the whole story, because right now I'm still silenced on a lot of things. There's a lot that I can't talk about, but I'll be able to at some point, and I will when the time comes, because it isn't fair the way that people are trying to silence me. I won't put up with it forever. There are things that are going to come out, and when they do, a lot of people are going to be ashamed of themselves for the way that they have behaved towards me, towards my kids, for the way that they have judged me and judged my kids. Because they have no idea. They don't have a clue. Not a clue at what's been happening to us, what's been going on in the background. Caught up to now, I take her every 28 days still to get IVIG. They also give her a medicine called Orencia and a bag of steroids. She really likes to do nighttime appointments. So I would take her over to the Children's Hospital at 8:30 at night. They'll get her IV put in, get her meds going, and we'll sleep through the night so she can sleep through most of her treatment. Her older sister, the one that's just above her, she would generally stay home with my niece or my sister. Now their dad wants the older one to go stay with him. It's a fight to get the younger one to go to her appointments. It's gotten a little better the last couple of months. Now I'm having to change her appointments to earlier in the day, because if I'm not going to be home overnight, I have to let my ex take my kids. Because the older daughter doesn't want to do that, I'm having to switch my baby back to daytime appointments. I get a phone call from the hospital on Tuesday the 21st, and they tell me that her prior authorization has expired, so she can't have her IVIG that day. We're just getting ready to go out of town. I'm scheduled to take my kids on the 23rd to Oregon. We're going on a road trip to go see their grandparents. My ex-husband's parents live up outside of Bend, Oregon. I'm going to take the girls and we're going to drive up to Boise, spend the night in Boise with an aunt and uncle up there, then go spend a couple nights with the grandparents, drive back, stay the night in Boise, and then come home. So the kids have fall break. It works out for us to go and do this road trip. I get a phone call from the hospital that morning, and they tell me that her prior authorization has expired, that they can't get through to the insurance company. I'm at work, but of course I hop on the phone with the insurance company. I do what I can. I'm talking to the rheumatologist office. I'm talking to the scheduling department. I'm talking to the insurance company. I'm trying so hard to get her medicine. She was diagnosed in October of 2019. She has flared twice. Both times have been in October. She flared in October of 21, and then she flared again last October. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I'm assuming that it has to do with the temperature change when things start to get really cold here. That does something, it triggers something in her body. So I'm starting to panic because when she flares, it can take so long to get her back on track. And I'm a single mom, right? So I'm here taking care of 100% of her medical care. I still have to work. I still have other kids to take care of. And she's just finally starting to experience what life is like normally. All she remembers is her life being sick. She doesn't remember what her life was like before she got sick. And even then, she started getting strep throat at 18 months old. So really, she's been sick for most of her life. So the rheumatologist tells me, still take her in today, get her Orencia, get her steroids, and once we get the new prior authorization, then you can bring her in and get her back on the IVIG. So okay, we do that. I take her up there, we're up there for 4.5 hours. We get home, we get ready the next day, start getting things ready to go on our road trip, and we hit the road on Thursday, the 23rd. So we head out on Thursday and get to Boise, just outside of Boise, to spend the night at my ex-husband's aunt and uncle's house. Friday morning, we come out, get the car started, the girls get loaded in, uncle puts the bags in the back, we say our goodbyes, I hop in the car, I look down at my dashboard, and my car is alerting me that my right front tire is completely flat. It's got 2% air in it. So I hop out, I'm like, Uncle, I got a flat tire, I need your help. He comes over, he takes a look at it, he reaches his hand over the tire, and he's like, oh my gosh, this tire is ruined. You can't drive on this. The inside tread, there's the outside, the middle, and the inside tread. The inside tread is completely ruined. He says, Emily, you're missing 2 lug nuts on this tire. And I'm like, what? How? There's no way that I should be missing 2 lug nuts on this tire. Do you have an air compressor? Can you put air in my tire and I will take it over to Discount Tire and have them get me a new tire. These tires are only 3 years old. I bought them at the end of November of 22. So there's no reason that this tire should be ruined or that these lug nuts should be gone. We get my spare tire out. We put that on with the remaining 3 lug nuts and realize that 2 of the bolts that hold the lug nuts are snapped. I realize that someone has intentionally messed with my tire. On May 21st of this year, I found a tracker in my spare tire. Someone put a tracker on my car. On July 14th of this year, I found out that someone had changed the registration address from my car to another address. And now someone has messed with the lug nuts on my tire just before I go on a trip. So we get the spare tire on. He gets the spare tire on. Let's be real. I get my car over to Discount Tire and I talk to, I think his name was Josh. It's the Discount Tire in Nampa, Idaho, off of Midland Boulevard. So I tell the guy, hey, look, this is my situation. I'm a single mom with these 2 little kids. I have a warranty with you guys on this tire. Clearly someone has messed with my lug nuts. I don't know if that's covered under my warranty. I just know that I can't buy 4 new tires. I've got an all-wheel drive vehicle. So generally, if you need 1 tire, you need 4. He says, okay, let me take a look at it. Let me see what I can do. He comes back and he tells me, I talked to my manager. We're going to give you a new tire for this. We can't put it on your car because of the lug nuts and the broken posts. Here's a card to a mechanic. Call him and see if this is something that he can do. And if he can do it, can you get an appointment to have him put this tire on? So he says, give me about 45 minutes. We'll get this new tire put on your rim. So I take the girls next door to McDonald's and we get some food and I call over to the mechanic and I explain the same thing to him. Hey, listen, I'm a single mom. Someone has messed with my tire. I've got 2 snapped bolts. Is this something that you can fix? And he tells me, I think so. Gets all the information on my car. I tell him the same thing. I don't have a lot of money. I'm just from Salt Lake, headed to Oregon to see grandparents. My stepson lives right by the grandparents, and my girls and I haven't seen him for a couple of years either, so we were going to get to spend time with him. The mechanic says, okay, bring it over to me. Let me see what I can do. We take it over to Quality Alignment and Mechanical in Nampa, Idaho, off of Marketplace Boulevard. I pull up, I get out of the car. Before I can even walk around the car to go inside, he comes out and he says, you're my Acura. I said, yeah, I think so. We shake hands and he says, let me see what I can do. I said, hey, my kids want to stay in the car while you take it up on the lift. Is that okay? And so he says yes. He hops in the front, drives us around to the back. The girls and I sit in the car while he takes the car up on the lift, and he just busts it out. He just fixes the two broken posts and puts the new tire on. So he gets done, lowers my car, wheels my spare tire around. Hey, do you want me to put your tire back? I said, no, it's okay. Let's just throw it in the back of my car, and I'll have my father-in-law put it on when I get to Oregon. So I shook his hand and said, thank you so much for helping me with this. This is the second person today that has helped me in a big way, like a really big way. So he says, yeah, not a problem. I hope things get better for you. Just so you know, O'Reilly's in Nampa, I'm assuming it's the O'Reilly Auto Part off of 3rd Street. He says they donated the bolts and the lug nuts. So I'm just blown away that 3 businesses now have helped me and my girls get back on the road so we can go see our family. Obviously, I'm extremely grateful to these companies, to Discount Tire, Quality Alignment, and O'Reilly Auto Parts. I just think it's amazing that they didn't even bat an eye. They just saw my situation, understood what was going on, and donated time and resources to keep me and my girls safe. I appreciate that in so many ways. I could never appropriately put into words just how thankful I am to all 3 of them for doing that for us. We made it up to Oregon Friday night, hung out with the grandparents and the girl's brother. We really had such a fun time. It was definitely something that we needed. We're out in nature. We're up on top of a mesa, and my in-laws have several acres of property. My father-in-law is phenomenal with the way that he builds things. He is exceptional in his craftsmanship. This man can build anything, fix anything. Over the summer, he had come down and bought a side-by-side buggy from me. Him and my son did, and they took it back up there, and they've been working on it together, doing this project together. And my mother-in-law is one of the most patient, kind, loving, funny women you'll ever meet. I love these people. They are so good. It's absolutely stunning, beautiful up there. I mean, Oregon is I love Oregon. I've always loved to visit there. It's so beautiful. So we got to go and have that time with our family, and then we got to make the drive home, and thankfully everything ran good. The rest of my tires were fine. Just these 2 lug nuts just disappeared in the process, snapped off the bolts that they were connected to. And coming home from that on the trip, I think I had so much gratitude for the ability to go on the trip, gratitude for these companies that helped me in my time of need, gratitude that my guardian angels were watching over the girls and I, because that situation could have ended so differently. When we got to our aunt and uncle's house Thursday night, we got out of the car and they had some blow up Halloween toys or, decorations on the front lawn. So we got out of the car and I could hear this like hissing noise. When we, realized that tire was flat on Friday, I said that to our uncle. When we got here, I heard the hissing noise. He had filled the tire up before we put the spare on. He had filled the tire up and it immediately just started hissing and losing air. So this tire held all the way until I backed into his driveway. And my little girl said, yeah, Mom, when I got out of the car, she said, I heard that same noise. But when I looked across the street, the sprinklers were running and I thought it was the sprinkler. So we both heard the air lose We both heard the tire lose air as soon as we got there. I thought it was from the Halloween decor. She thought it was from the sprinklers running. Really, the tire held all the way on that drive until we got there safely. And I think whoever took my lug nuts did not intend for that to happen. So this week, I think the reality of that has really hit me hard. And I have been trying to process through living with that information, wondering why someone thinks it's okay to do these things to us. Why does someone think it's okay to track me and my kids and my car? Why does someone think it's okay to change the address for where my car lives, causing me to not be able to register my car? Why does someone think it's okay to touch my lug nuts on my car? What narcissist thinks that this type of behavior is acceptable to put my children's lives in danger? As I messaged some of my family members, I just let them know, if anything happens to me, it's not an accident and it wasn't my choice. I need everyone to know and understand, if anything happens to me or to my children, it's not an accident and it was not my choice. It's incredibly unfair. It's absolutely ridiculous behavior. And my kids and I deserve to be left alone. We deserve to be able to live our lives, not have to worry about these kinds of things. I shouldn't have to worry about the safety of my children when I'm taking them on a family vacation. I shouldn't have to worry about why someone thinks they need to know where I'm at all times. So the last couple of weeks have been really tough. They've been really hard to deal with, to work through, to process. It's been a lot. And there's a lot of learning and growing, and thankfully there was a lot of quality family time mixed into these last couple of weeks. We were extremely blessed to spend the time that we did with our aunt and uncle, to spend the time that we did with my father-in-law and mother-in-law, to get to spend the time with my son, my girl's brother, to get to see the beauty of these mountains. And road trips have just always been a thing. I remember going to Montana as a little kid, going to Idaho as a little kid. I got married at 17 and immediately started taking road trips to Oregon and Washington. And so it's something that my kids and I have done. It's just been a thing. We didn't really get to travel last year, most of this year. So this was kind of our, big hurrah. And I'm really so incredibly grateful that we got to our destination and home safely, despite somebody not wanting that for us. And now I will be getting back to my regularly scheduled Sister Wives snarky commentary. I had filmed episode 4 the night episode 4 aired, and the platform that I use was down in certain ways. So the next day I edited the whole video. When I went to export it, 20 minutes of the actual video was gone and there was only audio. So when I got back from my trip, I went to a different section of my studio and I was able to pull that audio and video and re-edit the whole thing again. So I just got that put out 2 days ago, and now I've got 2 more episodes to film my commentary on. If you guys listened to this video all the way through, thank you so much. I just wanted to come on here, do a little update, let you know where I've been the last couple of weeks. Fill you in on how fun our adventures are and some of the shit we have to deal with. And hang in there with me, please, because I'm not giving up on this. I'm gonna keep it on, and hopefully God keeps watching over us and our guardian angels keep protecting us, because somebody's not happy and they are trying to cause some serious problems with me and clearly my kids. So anyways, thanks for the love and support. I have loved the comments from the last episode that I posted. I really appreciate my comment section on that video. You guys have been awesome. Thank you all so much for continuing to support me with likes and your comments, and thanks to all of my subscribers. I have been blown away to see the increase in the numbers. I got to see Melanie and Corey, and they are just a funny bunch. Damn, we have a good time together. So that was a lot of fun to go spend time with them. My niece's boyfriend's birthday, so we all got together and hung out, had a really good time, had some good jokes, some good laughs, some good drinks, some cake and ice cream. I was introduced to root beer floats with a shot of Jaeger in it, and that was really good. So needless to say, there was a lot of fun had by all. I think I will be back with season 20 episode 5 and season 20 episode 6. I can't wait to get those filmed. So thanks again, you guys. Have a great day.